this, right? All right, prostate. Saturday night, you know what that means? It's time for accelerated deconstruction. We're going to deconstruct some shit with Excelerate.
What's up, everybody? How's it going?
Explain yourself, sir.
Yeah. Like Irate said, welcome to another episode of my show that they named on Irate's channel.
Sorry, man. We're having fun with this stuff, y'all.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We already got 14 people watching. Aircraft Sparky, man. Thanks for joining.
Hey, man, what's happening?
Yeah, I've been trying to get you to sit in on this for a little bit.
Especially, this is actually a really great one for him to sit in on, Mr. Educator.
Aircraft Sparky's going to have to watch some SEC football for once this year. Just rubbing your nose in it, bro. Roll Tide. Anyway, I'll shut up about that shit now.
And I just want to just say gig him, because I can.
Well, all right. And
not because I care, just because I lived there for 10 years.
All right, so earlier this week, we've been kind of like, all of us are keeping our eyes out, so we've got this little stash that we like throw shit in, looking at all kinds of stuff. And kind of a repetitive theme this week is this attempted indoctrination. Not attempted, it's a focused indoctrination of young people in the K-12 system, public school system, with just pure social justice.
Yeah, no, that's all I saw this week coming out is, or like on this topic, is how anti-racist training specifically and anti-racist education has been. I mean, it's just accelerating. It's going through everywhere. It's not just in your colleges anymore, man. It's in your kids' classroom.
That's good to clarify.
And the dude,
we're not talking high school. We're talking elementary school here. They're putting it in little kid perspectives.
And what's even scarier, which we're going to show you, is some of the ideas that are coming out of the mouth of what is right now, like I would say, the anti-racist Bible, which is Ibram Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Right.
Like, if you just look at what he says, it just screams, this sounds like some sort of totalitarian communist bullshit. And it's because it is. I mean, it's not exactly communist, but it's close.
Yeah. It's like the doorway of communism.
Yeah, well, it's like communism reworked, and we've talked about this before. So what critical social justice does, especially critical race theory, is they use Marxist conflict theory, but they replace class with race.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And once you understand that, then all the pieces fit together.
And or power. There's power in
there.
Yeah,
but
race is the leverage.
No, but
yeah,
class,
like because they don't.
Class encompasses power.
Yeah, we've talked about several times. So in critical social justice or applied postmodernism, whatever you want to call it, they have a lack of any kind of coherent economic theory. But they kind of replace what you would call economic disparity with some sort of power dynamic disparity, or they'll use economic disparity in terms of racial injustice, right? Like just actual economic measures to say this is proof that racial injustice is going on.
We'll say hey to some people in the chat before we kick this mother off. We said hey to Sparky. Grillin' Pirate Pete, greetings, sir. Joshua Demers, of course. I'm not sure if I say Demers or Demers, but please don't be offended. Mr. Goatman, we have been blessed by the goat. Aloysius Fuddpucker, all right, always is in the chat. B Token, of course. Uzi Q, my one and only wife, I think. Byron King, I know who you are, and I know where you live.
Okay.
I know where Uzi lives too.
I'm sure.
I know exactly where she lives. I'm sorry, I had to just get it dirty. I don't know. Sorry about that, y'all.
Well, also, before we get too heavy, I noticed just a little bit ago that irate is up to 955 subscribers. That means in 45 more subs, he can make a whole $10 to $20 a month off of YouTube. So help a brother out. If you know anybody, share this out. Not just for this stream, but share out irate's channel. Get some people just to click that sub button so irate can put in his monetization application and start getting some dollars from Mrs. Wojcicki before they actually start watching his streams and demonetize his entire channel.
They say, "Oh my God, we've given a child a stick of dynamite." Oh Lord! All right, we're going to move into the tripping room, and we're going to get aboard the Enterprise.
I really need to. Yeah, I need to have like more days in my week.
You think?
Yeah, I no, I don't think, and that's the maybe I don't.
Would you suffice with 36-hour days? Because I think I would.
I think I would too. Yeah, because it would give me time to do research on top of fighting with kids and lesson plans.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hey man.
That does. What's up, man? Man, we're good, man. I do too. Messiah of Cac, I saw you sneak in there, brother. How you doing? All right, well.
Ooh, this is Purdy.
This is your show.
Sorry.
Yeah, let's start out with the screenshot from Ibram Kennedy about his constitutional amendment proposal.
That screenshot here.
Now, if this sounds totally stupid and doesn't make any sense to you, don't worry. It sounded totally stupid. It didn't make any sense to me either, guys.
Well, so while he's bringing it up, even the first part of a sentence, he says to fix the original sin of racism. Which is why I think an article we share later where they say, well, this is the most straightforward, jargon-free version of anti-racism that's ever been explained. Because he's not hiding the fact that he views racism as like the original sin of mankind.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what this is. This is a religion now.
Yeah.
And the original sin, of course, is racism, right?
Yeah, the original sin is racism, and all white people are guilty of it.
We need to be.
It's inherent. It's inherent in all white people to be racist, and in order to correct that, we have to do what Ibram Kendi says.
So go to be exorcised by a racist exorcist.
Well, yeah, so he goes on, now that you have the screenshot up, to fix the original sin of racism, Americans should pass an anti-racist amendment to the United States Constitution that enshrines two guiding anti-racist principles. Racial inequity is evidence of racist policy.
Okay.
All right. That in and of itself is empirically wrong. Inequity between any kind of group, it actually doesn't matter how you slice it, and economists have known this for a long time. Any serious economist will tell you that, if you can define a group in any kind of social manner, you're going to see economic disparities because they have different values.
Yeah.
And it's not just, you don't have to do it based on race. You can do it based on religion. You can even do it based on people that play X amount of hours of games and are part of gaming communities versus people that don't.
But I don't support equity to begin with. So why would they make an amendment about something that a bunch of America doesn't support?
Yeah, I think we can get to that, and the equity part, I know we've talked about a lot, but just the idea that racial disparity in outcomes means that some sort of policy is racist is asinine on its face.
Yes.
And then the second thing is said different racial groups are equal, so which I don't really have a problem with that statement, but I think it's already in the Constitution that all men are created. Yeah, it's already there. Like, we know this. So
well, and we have the Civil Rights Act, and then we have voting acts. So they're conflating equality and equity. I disagree with equity. Equity is a word like fairness, that the only time you can really use it is if you're abusing somebody with it. So I don't like the two concepts or terms. It's making my teeth itch, man.
I mean, this is where like you're already getting the Marxist overtones of what's going on here.
You're also getting the stupid overtone.
Well, all right,
The conflation overtone.
But y'all, okay, don't you think though at some level that these guys that are pushing this shit know that it's bullshit and really what they're looking for is money, right? Is like instead of completely doing an upheaval, we'll take a cash, we'll take cash reparations.
You mean doing like the Fortune 500 have done, or the Immaculate 11 rather, or whatever they're called? All those people like Falwell and the guy that has like more plastic surgery than Kamala Harris and all those super rich Christians. Those ones.
Yeah, I mean this is like they're race hustlers.
They're literally the same thing as the fundamentalist hustlers of the bakers and stuff from the 80s and 90s. Right. They seem like it's the same goddamn thing. Give me money to make yourself feel better.
Right.
Well, and we'll talk about that here in a second. I'm going to go through the rest of the statement. So, the amendment would make unconstitutional racial inequity over a certain threshold, as well as racist ideas by public officials, with racist ideas and public officials clearly defined. It would establish and permanently fund the Department of Anti-Racism, comprised of formally trained experts on racism and no political appointees. The DOA would be responsible for pre-clearing all local, state, federal public apostles to ensure they won't yield racial inequity, monitor those policies, investigate private racist policies when racial inequity surfaces, and monitor public officials for expression of racist ideas. And then it goes on. That is fucking scary. That is totalitarian.
That's fucking worse.
Definition. Aloysius asked an excellent question. Would the Department of Anti-Racism be next door to the Ministry of Truth? Because it seems to me like it would have to be. That is some crazy pants, scary ass crap. I'm like...
Great question.
And DOA, dead on arrival. What?
That's right.
Come on, dude. Isn't that a little on the nose?
It is right on the nose.
Well, and then you can bring up the next screenshot. So out of the same mouth of this person, because you talk about somebody says racist ideas clearly defined. Well, to us normies, we'd be like, okay, like you can't discriminate. That's fine, right? We all agree the government shouldn't discriminate based on race. Totally fine. But according to Ibram Kendi, the defining question is whether the discrimination is creating equity or inequity. If discrimination is creating equity, then it is anti-racist. If discrimination is creating inequity, then it's racist.
Wait a minute, so racism is good? Okay.
Well, because they've redefined racism to the point where discrimination is allowable again. And we're seeing this apply. This is the reason why they went to repeal the California civil rights laws that ban discrimination. Because they need that law to go away in order to enact policies that will discriminate against one
white
group
people
in order to boost up another group.
Yeah. That's going to work really well.
Well, it's not just white people. It's Asians are the most affected. Let's just be honest. Like, they've been bitching about it forever.
Yeah.
And it's true. Asian households, not...
No, I'm saying they're going to remove it so they can be more discriminatory against white people.
Well, yeah.
That's what I was saying. I was going to say it's going to get worse than it's ever been before because they're removing it. Because before it protected them from being overtly anti-white in the workplace.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, so Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey gave the guy that's writing this nonsense $10 million to further his, quote, research, unquote.
Okay, wrap your head around that.
Oh, come
Wrap
on. We're
your
just
head
pissed off we didn't think of
around
this shit first.
Seriously?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
Like some of
couldn't
this
sleep
shit,
with
like
myself, man.
some of the stuff that he wrote, like if I was like really in the mindset to be creative about how to make this as Orwellian as possible, this is what I would have written.
Right.
That's why Poe's law is so strong whenever you're trying to make fun of social justice, especially if you understand it, then it's even easier. It's the whole reason why James Lindsay, Helen Pluckrose, and Peter Boghossian were able to write hoax articles. And they weren't really hoaxes. They just wrote essays, submitted them to academic journals that are buy into this critical theory stuff. They understood the tenets, and they made up the most absurd things that they could possibly think of that fall under it. And not only were they accepted, but some of them got rewards for exemplary scholarship. Right? And they were just things that they pulled out of their ass to try to make fun of how absurd it was. Yeah. The journals accepted it because even they couldn't tell the difference between somebody who actually believes this shit and somebody that just knows what it is and is trying to poke fun at it.
Or at least show holes in the in the way that they're addressing the
We're trying to be the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we're poking fun. They were trying to show that this is a problem and there needs to be reform.
All I was just is saying he's looking forward to the irate comedy shows with, I guess you're doing that with Becca.
Yeah, on Mondays. Yeah.
I hate commies too, which is part of the reason I'm doing this, is because this is the new version of communism, and it's called critical social justice.
Well, see, we were talking about this before the show started, and Irate and I both were like, you know, we're both children of the Cold War, and Excel is just young enough that he was born at a time where he wasn't consciously aware of the threat of communism the way we were raised. So,
but I was still taught about it.
Oh yeah, but you didn't get the vitriolic, like, for not vitriolic. Fuck, I mean, it is a vitriolic disdain, but it's almost a lizard brain response, because we have been taught our entire lives that communism is really fucking bad.
Well,
our whole lives.
But the history bears out that as a truth now, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but, you know, I grew up in Southern California, well, Central California and Southern California, and I went to school with Russian refugees.
Right.
People that had gotten over the wall and were the Berlin Wall and had managed to get to America.
Yep.
Like, I went to school with those people. I went to school with people from Eastern Europe. So,
well,
like, yeah.
We talked about this show before, and I think that's why a lot of people, and I was like, we talked about before the show, people that politically I disagree with a lot of things that they think should be public policy, but I have more in common with now, considering how far to the left has actually gone, like Sargon of Akkad and Tim Pool now, they're just saying like, no, this stuff is anti-liberal, and it really is. It is explicitly. And
it's about damn time they started calling it out for what it is.
Yeah. Well, and one of the biggest problems that I think most people have, like, we instinctively look at this, and at first we called it cultural Marxism, which I think is a fine name for it as a pejorative. I'd rather use their own terms, because I think that there's enough in their own words that we can use against them. But people called it a conspiracy theory and dismissed it because they're like, this isn't Marxism. I was like, well, technically it's not, but Ibram Kendi, he's a intellectual descendant of Kimberly Crenshaw, who considered herself a post-Marxist. Like, she was very favorable towards Marxist ideas, and her mentor, Dan something from like the late 70s, I forgot his last name, her mentor outright said he was a Marxist. So, calling them
the balls to admit it.
Right?
Yeah, like, well, and like I said, they have this plausible deniability. It's like, oh, we're trying to introduce something new, but it's a repackaging of old ideas with kind of like a new skin.
All right, let me.
But see, I kind of have to disagree with that, because they even call themselves trained Marxists. Have you seen the videos with a lot of these BLM official leaders? Yeah,
no, I have, and it's out there. Like, some of them really will just outright say they're Marxist. Others, like Ibram Kendi, will avoid the word because they know the negative connotation that it comes with. right? Because if you're trying to sell this to, like, for instance, my company promoted Ibram Kendi's book as part of their book club from their Belonging Council. And I just wonder if even the CEO of the company even read this. Because throughout the book, he talks about shit like being anti-capitalist, saying capitalism is inherently racist.
Are you serious for where you work?
For where
serious?
Yeah, don't give it away, but yes.
No, I'm just that blows my mind, dude.
Yeah, and and I work for, I would say, a medium-sized company.
He works for BET, everybody.
Yeah, I work on at a nationally sized company, not like a global company. But yeah, they've started pushing this, and yeah, you're right, Tim. It doesn't make any sense. That's why I don't think that the people that actually are in charge of making sure the company are making money, I just have a hard time believing that they actually believe this shit. I think there's something else going on, and we can get to that when we get to
that's what I was alluding to earlier about the just give me some fucking money and I'll go away. You know, I think there's an aspect of it, of a grift, a heavy grift. See, man, here's the deal with socialism and communism. From an idealistic point of view, it's altruistic in nature, and it appeals to the goodness in people, right? People are good people, and they don't want to see other people hurt. And it's that's being hijacked into people because it's emotionally, centered, and it's being turned into this, this like scene from fucking Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where everybody's screaming and pointing at you because
you don't have a parasite.
You're not one of us. Exactly. You're not a pod person.
Sorry.
Well, and something you're talking about, what makes people susceptible to this is we were talking about it a little earlier. Sorry for burping on stream there. But they have the 6 pillars of morality. This comes from Jonathan Haidt, where they say it's care, fairness, loyalty, authority, sanctity, and liberty. And communism appeals to people that are really high on fairness and care over everything else, right? Like they would make liberty the last thing on their list compared to making sure that things are fair and making sure that things are caring.
That's stupid, but hey.
Okay. Does anybody else remember growing up in the 70s and 80s where the theme of everything was life isn't fair? Fuck me. Whatever happened to watching Labyrinth?
Sticks and stones can break your bones. I mean, now words are violence.
Fucking Page Master, Fuck, dude. Whatever happened to teaching kids to be brave and face their fears? And take risks, dude. This is fucking stupid. We need to stop letting them do this. And we need to start, this is making me mad, folks. Because this is our education. This is our kids. Because, okay, go ahead. Oh, no, because there's something else I want to talk about later because I have younger and adult children. So this is, I've
got the second part put up.
But before I even get to this, I just want to read it. So Jack Dorsey, leader of one of the big 3 of social media, comes on and gives $10 million to this Ibram Kendi guy. That's after he goes on the Joe Rogan show and plays them for a fool, saying that they're trying to be politically neutral and
talking about redemption and shit.
Yeah, and it's obvious. Like, if he honestly thinks that Ibram Kendi, based on what I just read to you, is worth a $10 million investment, then he is obviously so far off on the left-wing political scale that there's no hope for him ever guiding his company to really care about free speech and the open marketplace of ideas on his platform, because this ideology doesn't allow for that. It openly rejects the open marketplace of ideas.
Right.
It wants to monitor people in government to make sure that they don't fall outside the scope of what racial equity and anti-racism should be. They want to enshrine that into our Constitution.
Yeah, fuck that. That's not even an American value, dude.
It's not. It's anti-American. It's anti-American and it's anti-liberal. They're trying to turn things upside down. Like,
Well, America is a very liberal country, but not the way these people think of liberalism. We are a classically liberal country.
Yeah, anybody new? We use the word liberal in this stream specifically to describe the ideological descendants of the Enlightenment, right? Where we think that we can use reason and empiricism to derive objective truths about reality. And critical social justice does not believe that. They don't believe in any of that. They don't believe that empirical evidence.
That's white man's thinking. It's inherently flawed because it's white in origin.
And if you love your parents, you're bad too, guys. Having a family that is, you know, nuclear, which is tried and true, tested for fucking tens of thousands of years. There's so much about it that's wrong.
Yeah, like
so much.
Like, translating to their words is they would say something like objective truth is something that's not only not possible but not desirable. And then they would say that things like the family structure are social constructs and we can deconstruct them and reconstruct them however we want to make them fit our ideology.
Okay, so I'm curious where evolutionary biology and evolutionary sociology fit into this entire paradigm.
Dude, they don't believe like some of them will outright say biological sex isn't real.
Well, okay, yeah, that's fine. But I'm trying to figure out how you have because it's a humanities department. Have you seen anybody from evolutionary psychology or evolutionary biology or evolutionary sociology? Have you seen any academics in those fields talking about this yet? Because I haven't.
Yeah, no, you have. You've seen Brett Weinstein.
He's a biologist.
Yeah, well, biologist. He's an evolutionary biologist. He
is?
Yeah.
I thought he was just a biologist.
Well,
okay. So
he and Heather both are evolutionary biologists.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deborah So was I think it's sexology. So it's a study in neuroscience that has to do with sex. She's also been speaking out against this.
Okay.
But like Deborah So actually tells the story. Like, she was speaking out against it, saying that like we have enough evidence on prenatal testosterone alone to say that like the gender people fall into is 99% of the time going to align with their biological sex, outside of some sort of extraneous factor where you try to force them into this other situation. And she has evidence that, you know, if you try to push a kid into believing that they're not aligned with their biological sex, then down the road it's going to cause.
They tend to commit suicide.
Yeah.
They tend to commit suicide because there are numerous stories about psychologists having kids or being in charge of kids that are twins or something like that, and they will push them towards transgender. It's all, I want to say it's part of MK Ultra, but I don't think it is. But it's supposedly it's a CIA. I don't know, but there's lots of actual news stories about kids that killed themselves at about the age of 13 or 14 that were raised with that really weird forced transgender shit, and it was all experimental. It was all experimentation on those kids, all of it.
Yeah, and I think
and that was in the 70s and 80s.
We'll try to get to gender in depth on some stream in the future.
Yeah,
just right now it's not really the hot topic. But one more thing on Deborah So. She actually left academia to just become a writer on this subject, and it was actually because she, you know, was seeing all this stuff coming out of the social studies departments, which embraced critical theory. And she knew it was wrong, and she came out and she spoke against it. And she talked to like some of her professors. Yes, she was on Rogan. Yeah. She was on Rogan a couple times. Yeah, I'd heard of her before.
Sexy.
Yeah, She's a hot Asian bitch.
Indeed.
But yeah, the reason she left is because she was actually told, like, saying like, yeah, nothing you're saying is going to be factually incorrect, but like we can't say this because like I don't want to lose tenure.
Right.
So, and she actually said she kind of understood that. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't respect that, but a lot of what's going on with people in the hard sciences that are against this stuff, the ones that are like, most of them are just keeping their mouths shut because they don't want to stir waves. And if you really think about it, it makes sense because the kind of people that like get to that level in the hard sciences, they're usually not very confrontational.
Well, no, because they spend so much time researching, they aren't actually around living people in those fields.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're doing a lot of people stuff. Or like,
Yeah.
you know, a cultural anthropologist or a gender studies or a Middle Eastern studies or a religious studies. They have much more physical interaction and a different type of competition in their field.
As somebody who went to college at an engineering school, I mean, I know the type. Like, this kind of stuff just doesn't come up. You don't talk about it in those circles. Your professors don't care about that stuff, right? They're super excited and interested in the science behind everything, and that's all they talk about. That's all they care about, and they don't get into political arguments. It's just not something that they do, which leads me right into the screen cap that is on the screen.
Well, I was going to say this is kind of, oh boy, never mind. I'll talk about that later because this is way more important.
Yeah, so this is a screen cap from a syllabus at a college, and they kept it anonymous, but required text 2, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. The same person that we showed you had ridiculous ideas at the very beginning of the stream.
Obviously,
and that Jack Dorsey gave $10 million to.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it says, this may come as a bit of a surprise for an engineering course, but in my opinion, it is time that we address some of our society's systemic problems in engineering.
Huh?
I don't even, like, you'll notice most likely your classmates are white and male.
Building shit is racist? What?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Sorry, I didn't
really
mean to
think about
shout that.
Given that I went to a school that at the time was very concerned about the number of women that enrolled in engineering, I know for a fact that all these schools, they would love to have more black people enroll in their engineering programs, right? They try their hardest. They've been doing this for decades, trying to get people to enroll, trying to offer scholarships, lowering the expectations even to get into the college for racial minorities, or for women specifically. It was lowering the expectations for them.
And you don't realize
just to get them.
Engineering is a science of precision, and if you're wrong in engineering, people die.
Yeah, that's why it's building shit.
Exactly.
Well, it's very hands-on, and it leans towards introverted people,
right?
Which it's look at it as the opposite of something like nursing, right? Because nursing would be something that, like, sure, it's actually kind of precise too, but you have to deal with people all the time, right? You have to be a very social person to do that.
Yes, which is why you see men do engineering and women do social sciences. One deals with being around people, which evolutionarily is what women have always done. Been in groups, take care of babies and gather around, and men have done a lot of solitary shit like hunting and farming. Sorry. My nerddom came out. I'm sorry, I shut up now.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how hard they tried, like I heard from somebody recently that went there, like fairly recently, that when I was there, it was a 7 guy to 1 girl ratio. And now they're down to a 4 guy to 1 girl ratio.
I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing.
But I also heard that they expanded their humanities departments.
Oh, okay. I was going to say a lot of women in engineering. I don't know if that's good or bad. I guess it depends on their education. And looking at Common Core, we're fucked. So, sorry. Actually, I kind of worry about engineering as a whole because of Common Core.
Can you imagine being an intelligent mathematician and thinking and trying to think about thriving in today's atmosphere? You know what I'm saying? Environment.
Doc Griffin asked an important question. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but is it okay that he's confused?
Yes, it's perfectly fine. This whole thing is really baffling.
Doc, I just want to make sure, are you confused specifically why How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram Kendi is required text for an engineering course?
Yes, I am. I don't know.
I've been trying to figure out, like, I knew there was something wrong with the social sciences like over 20 years ago when I was still in school, and I went to go take a primitive religions course, and the primitive religions course covered all the religions of the planet except Europe.
Yeah. Talk to who? What?
Okay, accelerate. Philip Daniel saying accelerate. Asians are treated functionally the same as whites in hiring, but in equity indoctrination settings are classed as oppressed in the oppression matrix. Schrodinger's white people.
Oh, no, yeah, Philip, I mean, I thought implicitly, I read that. I thought implicitly I dealt with that because, actually, let's go back to something we talked about before. So, in critical social justice doctrine, they're actually very suspicious of Asians because they do so well, and they blame them for being a model minority, which is a pejorative in critical social justice.
Yeah, how dare you be smart, god damn it!
Yeah. So they act as a model minority.
What the hell?
And the issue is that they basically go throughout society acting white, which is why they get preferential treatment and do so well in the social hierarchy.
Oh, wait. So they value family and individual thought and free will? Oh,
and hard
God.
work.
Actually, I don't think they believe that as much as like they really believe in discipline and hard work.
Yeah, white adjacent. That's another one. I get that one. I get white passing. I get white passing.
White passing. You actually have a thing going on called brown privilege, where they talk about how light-skinned people, aka brown, not black, have more, like a certain privilege over people that are dark-skinned, which are people that are obviously completely black.
Yeah, for people that don't know, Tema is biracial.
No, I'm like quadraracial. I'm Native American, Mexican, Gypsy, and black and white. I'm just a mutt. But everybody assumes I'm half Mexican, even though there's only like one person who's like a quarter Mexican, like 2 generations ago. So, no, and that was what I grew up with in California because I grew up in a predominantly Hispanic area. So everybody just assumed I was half Mexican. And I'll tell you what, a lot of little old ladies and little old men got really mad at me because I didn't know any fucking Spanish.
By the way, Doc Griffin got back to me and said yes to the answer to my question. Doc, that's why we're having the stream. Is we're kind of showing how this critical social justice theory that has been the accelerated deconstruction streams on iRate's channel for the past few weeks. And if you go back to my channel, you'll see about 3 streams on the same topic. It's the reason we're talking about this is we're trying to get people to understand where this is coming from in academia. And then today specifically, we're talking about how this is being applied to the real world that affects all of us, really.
Well, okay, so the one thing I will say is there's something very, very dangerous about this entire thing. Kids like me that their families aren't like, we've been multicultural because, my dad's black, my mom's white, or my grandfather's from Korea or something like that, where it's like, I've had a combination of like my daughters are 4 different types of Native American where I'm only 3. So we come from a house where I've had to teach my daughter about Native American heritage and the intertwining of those 2 cultures into becoming America. And we now have this indoctrination that makes no space for multiracial families or families that have the integration of Native American and European or American cultures the way that it actually exists. And it's a pretty hefty group of people these days, guys. It's like 15% of kids are freaking mixed race or something, or multiracial. So it's really, really dangerous for them to be doing this, because it's going to create a whole subsection of individuals that are going to have serious self-esteem issues and identity crises throughout their formative years. It's like, it's a big deal. It's actually like, we should be really pissed about this. This is really, really dangerous in a lot of ways. And it makes me really, really glad I homeschool. Sorry.
I completely understand. I do not disagree. And I think right now is a good time to move on to just based on everything we told you about what anti-racism means, and we gave you a glimpse at how it's being pervasive even in engineering courses in university. I think we should go to that How to Be an Anti-Intellectual article, which is a critique of Ibram Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist by Coleman Hughes.
I love Coleman Hughes.
Yeah, if you don't know who Coleman Hughes is, he's a philosophy student at, I can't remember the university, but he became really popular. He testified in front of Congress on reparations. He certainly grew up. He's very young, but he grew in his early years of college. He kind of parroted the whole Black Lives Matter thing. He kind of bought into all this stuff, but then he just started looking into it. He did his own research, and I think the biggest thing that he ever did is he actually read some of Thomas Sowell's books on these topics, where Sowell commented on a lot of empirical evidence about how racial disparity is normal, how if you look at it as an economist, you're going to see that it's way more complicated than just race. There's other things at play. And he became very skeptical about things like Black Lives Matter. But he wrote this review, which I have to say is actually really even-handed. I'll actually post a link to it because we're not going to read the entire article back to you. What's up, MC?
Okay, what part do you want read?
I'm actually just going to scroll through it because there were a few things. Yeah, there were only a few things I wanted to highlight.
Well, I was going to read the second paragraph in because it's kind of important.
Oh, go for it if you want to read it.
Okay, it says, if the book has a core thesis, it is that the war admits of no neutral party, or the war admits is that this war admits of no neutral party and no ceasefires. He does write in a strange way, guys, typical of a philosopher. For Kendi, there is no such thing as a not racist idea, only racist ideas and anti-racist ideas. In his Manichaean outlook, his Manichaean outlook extends to policy. Every policy and every institution in every community in every nation is producing or sustaining either racial inequity or equity. Kendi proclaims defining the former as racist policies and the latter as anti-racist ones. Okay, so that's the thesis of the book, if you can call it having a thesis, which tells you this isn't an argument. This is a scream at you. You better get up and read your daily Constitution this morning, put on that ankle-length dress of beige, and go eat your oatmeal. This is...
Well, and this is important because it goes back to something we harped on before, and we've said this a million times, right? They don't believe there's such thing as not being racist. You're either actively an anti-racist or you're a racist. There's no in between.
Which is the dumbest fucking concept I've ever heard. Especially even positive and negative has the state of neutral. Nature doesn't even exist in a binary like they're trying to create.
Yeah, this is why it's most certainly indoctrination to teach this stuff to children in schools, because if they're actually following the anti-racist curriculum that's been defined, they're not teaching your kids to just not be racist. They're saying you have to actively for your entire life find things that are racist as deemed by the scholarship that defines what racism is, go out, find it, and then oppose it. Otherwise, you're being racist.
Well, okay, but
imagine teaching that to.
Yeah, let's go abuse a bunch of children because it's totally not abuse, right?
Imagine teaching that to 10-year-olds of all races.
No, that's abuse. You're encouraging children to abuse each other, and they do that naturally on their own, trying to establish their own hierarchies. You don't need to make it worse.
Yeah, but see, the deal is that nobody's checking this shit. This poison is making it through to the children because people inside the education system, this is part of their agenda.
You know what happens if you try to buck the system with your kids? They take your kids.
Yeah, they fuck your kids over.
Your fucking kids.
Yeah.
They take your fucking kids if you.
Well, this is where my Twitter buddy that I found I literally became friends with him because he tried to argue with me when I was attempting to be a Poe.
Oh, is that guy?
Yeah, this guy, Old Ken Art. He talked about it and he says like the whole ideology is filled with Trojan horses.
It's nothing but Trojan horses.
Right? Like on the outside, you see this thing that says racism is bad, and on the inside, you see this totalitarian policy that really has nothing to do with race.
Which is wholly fucking terrifying on its face. And the premise they're actually using is terrifying on its face. Like, wholly terrified, because you're telling people that you can no longer think objectively, you can no longer rationally and calmly do anything. You have to just be an amoeba and feel your way through every situation you're in. They're trying to deconstruct the human condition and remove it from people because they recognize that the only way to have communism is to remove human nature.
Yep, they actually don't believe in humanism, which is a lot of people have heard humanism probably discussed in different terms, but in liberal ideology, humanism was this thing that there's this kind of shared pervasive things that are just true about humans, and they've been true throughout all of history, which is how we based liberal ideology on, how we came up with the idea of equality under the law, not equity, right? It was this idea that all men, all people, there's certain things that they would all aspire to and believe in, and this has been true throughout the history of humanity.
Yes.
And they don't believe that. They think that we are complete blank slates, tabula rasa, and everything that we do is programmed to us socially, and that there's nothing inherent about our biology that makes us think and act the way we do, which all the science points to that's wrong.
Yeah.
We know it's not true. Certainly the nature versus nurture argument, there's a lot to be said. The best way I've described it is that we have some pre-programmed hardware that we're born with, and our social stimulus is the software that gets installed. Yeah,
and we aren't quite sure where that combination or what the ratio of each is yet, but we know that it's a pretty healthy combination of both that creates the type of people I guess we think of as optimal or happiest. I don't even know how to.
Well, yeah, and I don't have the citations ready for this stream because this is kind of off topic. Well, kind of off topic, but pretty adjacent to what we're talking about. But they have pulled papers. They've pulled studies that the outcomes of the study disagrees with what the critical social justice warriors would say, because it comes up with a conclusion that is antithetical to this. Right? One that supports what we're saying of science. We're just like, no, this is way more biological than you think. And they're like, no, because that would imply that
free will actually exists.
Yeah.
And that you have to respect people's minds and agency.
That goes with the whole thing saying that that it's like almost approaching culture as a living thing.
Well, it kind of is,
you know
in a way.
Saying? No, but what they're saying is that it's not genetics, It's that dictates everything.
But it's not. It's okay. So.
Well, and this is something. Hold on, this is something they get backwards. Is that they think that they don't understand that culture could possibly be inspired by genetics. And if you look at things like
thank you.
Right, any culture that is not conducive to the procreation of offspring is going to die. Right? Any scientist is going to tell you that.
Well, and
so
that's against your basic nature of humanity. Don't you think? I mean, that's kind of your point, right?
Oh, well, it does. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so like people argue with me on this all the time, and I'm going to go off. It's a bit of a side thing, but it's going to give you an example. So I argue all the time with collectivists that they have conflated cooperativism and collectivism because humans we're voluntaristic in nature. We will work together cooperatively to achieve a goal or to, things like that. However, we are not collectivistic because we don't specialize that way physiologically. We are quite literally the opposite of collective because we are all genetically unique. So, you see what I'm saying? It makes a good parallel. Like, when you go talk to, like, I'm sorry, I've had a long day and I didn't sleep very well, and I'm really trying to put this together and it's not working. Okay, so
you're doing it
when
good, man. No, we'll let you do it.
Okay, so when you're arguing the point and you're saying, our collectivists will say, well, no, but what they're doing is they're trying to say that human nature I'm pointing out that you can watch throughout time. I mean, the only reason we had agrarian societies is because humans are or cooperative and not collective. Because if they hadn't been willing to work together to protect a little square of land to grow their fucking quinoa or whatever the hell it was, they wouldn't have been able to get to the next step. But it wasn't because they were specialized and they were suddenly born with the genetic ability to farm really well or something. No. So they ignore that very basic, obvious premise to get to where they are. And when you try to tell them that A equals A and they're ignoring that A equals A, they will tell you that is racist.
Yeah.
Because it just destroys the entire idea.
Well, all right, here's a question I have. Well, all right, so you have, in Africa, a group of people growing at the same time, developing as a group that's in Greece. Okay? One doesn't go very far. I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say, if you know what I'm saying.
You want to know why civilization occurred in places based on, even though they're at like the same latitude on the planet?
Well, basically, yeah, man. I mean, it's like,
okay.
My deal is that, okay, if
Africa is too hard biologically or environmentally, Africa is too difficult. It's very hard to grow crops there. There's not a lot of push to like advance. It's mostly a push to survive. In Europe, it's hard enough to push to survive, but not hard enough to only focus on surviving. In North America and South America, it wasn't even hard enough it was barely hard enough to make life difficult. So that's why you don't see the same types of civilization. And this is, I want to go back to classical conservative sociology because everybody would know this if we were just allowed to talk about it candidly. But it's the amount of environmental oppression you got from where the people come from.
All right, I'm gonna circle things back to the topic at hand, and I'm also gonna say, what's up, memes? What's up, Addie? Right now, we're actually reading a review of Ibram Kendi's "How to Be an Anti-Racist." So you were saying that every policy is either racist or anti-racist, and
everything in the world, every idea, everything is either racist or anti-racist. There is no other thing. So there is no state of neutrality. Nature does not exist.
Yeah. So they were talking about how like Esther Klein from Vox asked the question like, so would a cut in capital gains taxes be racist? And Kendi was able to answer yes without hesitation. They highlight. I mean, you think it's funny because like you would think like a capital gains tax, it's kind of neutral, right? It's the tax on your holdings of capital. Well, it's specifically the profit you make when you finally sell it.
Stocks, man. You're right.
Yeah, because the idea is that you invest in a company, right? And that money has already been taxed, and you get some money back. So,
but a capital gains tax is when you profit off of that, when you earn. When you pay a percentage of that in the tax too, even though it's already been taxed like once or twice.
Yeah, even though the government doesn't give you any money back if you have losses. But that's their thing with racism, is because it would be racist because less black people own stocks or other capital assets than other races.
Which is fucking stupid, man.
Yeah.
Is that my fucking fault? Is that your fault?
Well, yes, it is. It is because we haven't stopped it preemptively from our previous lives as slaveholders, I think.
Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I want to move on from that because other things came out.
Does that make as much sense?
Other claims that Ibram Kendi, receiver of $10 million to further his research from Jack Dorsey, who made all his money off of capitalism, is that he says capitalism is essentially racist and racism is essentially capitalist. He doesn't actually argue.
Oh my god!
So someone who just goes and says like he doesn't offer any evidence of this. He just says that it's
he just throws it out there.
It's really true.
Am I going to actually have to read this stupid book? Am I really going to have to do this? Because like I really hate reading political. Oh. I'm going to have to learn.
I'm just going to say I've read a decent amount of it, and I have not paid for it. So if you want to figure out how I did that, I do not break the law. We do not condone any sort of
I'm sure there's enough excerpts of this book. I'm sure there's enough excerpts of rebuttals on this book that you can get most of the book out of people just bitching at how bad it is. Seriously.
I know exactly what Excel said.
Yeah, I know what he's saying too, and I'm just trying to divert that away from what he's saying.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know how you would know what I'm saying other than I see don't break the law.
Don't break the law. Now, Aloysius Fudpucker said something really great, and it's really accurate, actually. He said the left started taking over the schools in the early 70s. Now they have had time to set up in almost perfect echo chambers. Teachers only ever go to school cradle to grave. We have infantilized an entire industry in our nation.
Yep, and also because they've set up that fort in academia, they've made it so that applications from people that have a conservative ideology, even if they're very well qualified, are more likely to be rejected than people less qualified that have a liberal ideology. Which is why most conservatives, it's not just that conservatives don't go into academia, which I kind of understand, because they're most likely to want to take their skills to the private sector. But even the ones that want to are discriminated on the viewpoint ideology.
Well, yeah, you can't. Like, even 20 years ago when I was in college, it was kind of difficult to have moderate opinions. It was like, there were so many people that were really mad that I didn't have, like, a full opinion of Bill Clinton. And I'm like, well, he's had some good policies, but, like, I really didn't like that whole impeachment thing. I thought that was kind of embarrassing, you know? And I remember, even back then, that would get me flack. So I think maybe we've just been we go to school and we've been conditioned because it's been there for so long that we don't even notice, and that we stopped noticing quite a while ago just how intolerant and awful these people actually are. I really do. I think they desensitized us to how intolerable they were through like drugs and bad music. Like, seriously.
All right, so there's a quote right here that's kind of highlighted. It says to Fix the original sin of racism, Americans should pass an anti-racist amendment to the U.S. Constitution that enshrines two guiding anti-racist principles. Racial inequity is evidence of racist policy, and different racial groups are equal.
Well, yeah, that actually was part of one of the first screen caps we had, so we went over it a little bit. But it is absolutely like that's kind of like that quote is, if you read through exactly what he's saying, like, and you know how to translate it, he's basically just saying redistribution of wealth based on race.
Right.
Okay, that's kind of what I was getting from it, because it kept saying equity and inequity, and I'm going, well, unless you're talking about yardage or acreage you're going to sell somebody, or the value of somebody's house, I don't know what else you mean by equity. So, what the fuck? Because you want us to put communism as an amendment to the Constitution?
Yeah, I mean, in more plain language, what he's trying to say is that he believes that as far as like distribution of trades that are desirable in a free market economy, that every race is going to graduate from high school even being basically the same. And if they're not graduating even at the same rates, right, then there has to be a racist policy that is causing that to happen, and that any other possible hypothesis
is racist.
Right? This goes back to the meme that I think we shared one time about the scientific method, the critical theorist way, right? Yeah. So any other theory is just on its face racist in and of itself. Yeah. You have to reject any theory that isn't what he says. I think, and we're going to get to the end of this, but give Kendi some credit that he's saying this in no obscure terms. He is actually saying that if there's not equal outcomes, then there is something racist going on.
Well, yeah, we just need to pinochet all the commies. I think you might be right, Addie. I really, like, after living up here in Portland for a while and watching the disgraceful riot we had today, yeah, I'm kind of fucking done. I watched patriots get hammered with bricks and concrete chunks and bottles with Quikrete and rocks and crowbars and sticks and all kinds of horrible shit. I watched them get bombarded and fireworks and mortars and all kinds of shit. I watched them get bombarded for 3 hours and the cops did nothing. Fucking nothing. So, yeah, I think shit needs to burn at this point. This is I'm beyond done with the violence and the bullshit. This is dumb. It's fucking retarded.
Right.
Sorry.
I completely agree, and I'm actually willing to talk about that on the number 7, which was play a video or open up the stream.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're gonna get to
sorry.
number 7 at all, but
it was a rough watch, guys. It was a rough afternoon to watch. I was pissed. It was so hard to read stuff and go back and forth.
I have to skip to something else Kendi goes on to.
Okay, go ahead.
Health equity is a new thing that's coming up. And in How to Be an Anti-Racist, Kendi does talk about this, and he talks about things like blacks are more likely than whites to have Alzheimer's. But he doesn't mention that whites are more likely to die from it. He also talks about blacks are more likely than whites to die of prostate cancer and breast cancer, but doesn't include the fact that blacks are less likely than whites to die of esophageal cancer, lung cancer, skin cancer, ovarian cancer, bladder cancer, esophageal cancer, like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and leukemia, right? Like all these things, like in order for him to make his point on health equity, he has to cherry pick his data. He can't just like look at the entire health spectrum in and of its own. He has to only look at a very discrete section of it where he can claim there is health inequity.
Well, yeah, you have to use a discriminating eye because you don't want to bias the results.
Okay, yeah. Okay, sure. And that totally helps when I can't get to a doctor that will even listen. Yeah, I have a dislocated hip.
The default bias is white in nature. Therefore, it's bad. So
the default the default bias here is white is bad because of where I live. So I go in with my dreadlocks and my white passing skin, and I go in and say my hip is dislocated. They say, okay, we're going to take some pictures, and they come back and say you're constipated. Are you fucking serious? That's the level of care. And they're talking about a health inequity. Well, yeah. If it's already assumed that I'm a piece of shit and I'm too stupid to know what's actually wrong with my own body, of course I'm going to be treated that way. But if, I watch the Hispanic family or the African Muslim family go in, they get twice the amount of time in the doctor's office that I do, and they get 1 or 2 fucking translators and a bunch of extra shit in the room. So there's already a bias built in, and it's literally the opposite of what this motherfucker's talking about. Because any of these big places, you get minorities, especially non-English speaking minorities, and these fucking clinics start to drool because they get to charge the government a bunch of extra money for them. He's fucking wrong on his fucking face. Yeah.
I don't know. I love your fire, Timma. I really do.
yeah,
Sorry.
Like, no. Like, I loved it.
Shut up,
fantastic. Like, I wanted to give you a yellow card, but your fire was too much.
I'm sorry, dude.
She's an incendiary device.
Oh, it's just like, who's gonna watch if we don't have a Timma ranting like this?
Yeah,
Fuck,
exactly.
right? Yeah. No, I'm not that interesting, guys.
Like, even the refs, like, they're just like, fuck it. I know they just kicked a guy in the balls, and that's totally illegal in soccer, but
yeah, I can't.
it was awesome looking, so we're just gonna let it pass.
This dude got how many $1 million from Jack Dorsey?
$10 million from Jack Dorsey to say things like, President Reagan cut the safety net of federal welfare programs and Medicaid, sending more low-income blacks into poverty.
Say what?
Yep.
That's literally the opposite of. Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, no. Like, he actually, because so Coleman Hughes, who believes in things like empirical data, goes on to saying that, like, he actually couldn't find anything that supports the idea that black poverty rose during Reagan's tenure.
It actually
In
dropped.
fact, the opposite appears to be true according to the Census Bureau's history of
Thanks,
poverty
Coleman.
table with a link. And he's like, the black poverty rate decreased for every age group between 1982 and the end of Reagan's tenure in 1989.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, did we go over
That's what
that?
I was like, what the fuck is he saying? That's literally the opposite of what fucking happened. Oh my god.
Yeah, like on the same note, Kendi said that white women are the primary beneficiaries of affirmative action programs. And
ABC.
he said that this came from Kimberly Crenshaw, but didn't Coleman Hughes goes to say is like there was actually a study done by political scientists that shows that this is not true, and there's no evidence to support that claim either.
Well, yeah.
Are you talking
just
about,
like
people like
every
Nicole Brown
other
Simpson?
fucking claim they've made. Yeah. But it's like,
Well-
how many of these things have to come out to be totally and completely the opposite of reality before people start going, this is the opposite of reality. Shut the fuck
Yeah.
up.
Well, all it takes is that first domino to say the emperor's naked. Right?
Yeah. So, but they're always going to come back to where they say
It's
that
that charity.
they say empirical
shame.
claims. These empirical claims are racist in and of themselves, and we need to be thinking about the lived experience of the people that lived under it.
Okay, well then think about my lived experience too. You need to include everybody's lived experience if you're going to do that. You can't just say
Well,
these people's lived
experience
experience.
based in privilege.
Well, you passed.
No,
for
I
white.
don't.
You
I
passed
grew up
for
in a
white.
minority community, and I was the only one to get harassed by the cops all the time because my mom worked for them, and they knew I was going to fuck up better than all the other kids were because I was smarter.
You got Caucasian in you. You're fucked. You're
Yeah,
just tainted.
you're white. You passed for white.
You're tainted
fucked.
for
I
the
know.
original sin, and that's just something we got to learn how to live with.
Yeah, I know. Never mind the fact my family's all like freed slaves and like, yeah, whatever.
Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up on the critique of Kendi because some of the stuff he says is pretty funny. So this is what you'd call like instead of a backhanded compliment, a backhanded insult. It's like, what Kendi lacks in empirical rigor, he sure makes up for in candor. Right? Like, and I'm going to go to the last paragraph.
What he's saying is he really lets you know that he's playing with an empty deck by the shit he says, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that brings us to
He's baffling y'all with bullshit.
The final paragraph where he's like, how to be an anti-racist is the clearest and most jargon-free articulation of modern anti-racism I've read. And for that reason alone, it's a useful contribution. So he's giving him credit for just flat out saying exactly what he means instead of trying to obfuscate it.
At least we can understand what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. But the book is poorly argued, sloppily researched, insufficiently fact-checked, and occasionally self-contradictory, which my own commentary is all of critical race theory.
Wow.
As a result, it fails to live up to its titular promise, ultimately teaching the reader less about how to be anti-racist and more to how to be an anti-intellectual.
Ooh. Spanked.
Sick burns.
Sick burns, man. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I love Coleman. I love Coleman Hughes. Have y'all seen? Did we go over that Brett Weinstein thing where he did the little mini summit? Okay, that's what I thought. You know, it was like
we did the whole thing where he had all like Brett and
Greg
had a whole
Lowry.
bunch of,
Yep. Yeah, man. I love both
Glenn
of those
Lowry
guys.
and Michael, what you call it? He's also really good.
Lowry's like my black. He looks like my black twin.
That's funny.
Yeah, I actually encourage anybody that might be skeptical to check out that stream because you had a wide range of opinions on that stream. You had your black conservatives, but you also had black liberals that also said that like this is nonsense. They didn't.
Right.
One of the things critical race theory does is it takes the agency away from individuals, particularly black individuals or any minority individual. Anybody that could fall into these intersectional groups that they've contrived, they take away agency from. And
they take away agency from everybody.
Well, yeah, and like the best way to explain it is critical race theory. It doesn't look at you as an individual, but as a representative of your group. And if you are not parodying what that group should be saying, then you're outcast. Like you're looked as trying to be white or a model minority, or in terms that most people here could understand, an Uncle Tom.
Which, okay, if people are using Uncle Tom as a pejorative, they are illiterate. Because if you read Uncle Tom's Cabin, Uncle Tom is like Jesus. He's not a sellout. So, but that's a personal.
Yeah,
another yellow card. Sorry.
I get it. But you see what I'm saying? Where
they actually
have a pejorative. They have a pejorative for people that fall under a different race but don't agree with it. And it's. I mean, they say shit, and I think I actually made a stream about this where they say that if you throw out people like Coleman Hughes, Glenn Lowry, Thomas Sowell, anybody like that, it sounds like they throw it out there and they use it to say that you can't put these people up as white shields, which even that in and of itself, I think, is racist because they're trying to say Thomas Sowell didn't actually do any good work or research in and of himself, right? He didn't have great factual arguments, right? Well, when they call Thomas Sowell a white shield, they're saying all he did is put a black person in front of white people to defend their racism, which I think is an incredibly racist way to put things.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's like, yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, Soul's pretty impressive, actually.
Meme says I'm playing a very different game. You're gonna have to elaborate because I actually don't necessarily know. Anyway, that's all I had for that article. I just wanted to point out for Irate, who has to bring up the next thing in my list.
We're going back in there. All right. What's the next?
Well,
thing
no,
on the
like
list?
I just wanted to prepare you for it.
All right, so
Well,
we've
after
got
that, it was the
Goodyear.
article for the post. Well, actually, we didn't get to Goodyear. Let's do that.
Okay, yeah, we need to point out the glaring problem with their mindset, and we need to like let people know that they need to call them on it, because it's really stupid, because they're pretending like they don't have a bias when they do.
Yeah, Addie says Soul's a brilliant man. On
Yeah,
this
he
topic
is.
specifically, I think everybody should read Thomas Sowell's Discrimination and Disparity. He talks about how even if you look at families that have a first child of any size, right? The first child on aggregate does better than all the other children. Right?
Yes.
And this is true for families of 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. The first child is most likely to be successful based on every economic indicator of success. So do we live in a society that has first child privilege?
Well, yes, we do, but it's not really
China
a
would say
privilege so
yes.
much as it's... Well, yeah.
Anything?
Yeah, China would say yes, but this was him starting to make a point that I said earlier. Is no matter how you dissect society into certain social groups,
You're gonna find inequity.
You're gonna find disparity.
Yeah.
You're gonna
And
find
sometimes
inequity.
it's going to be massive.
Right. Just that's the way the shit is. Even in a socialist environment, there were poor people in fucking Russia.
Well, that's what I keep. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, man. But it's like everybody's like not middle class, but just under middle class, poor and poorer. That's what the whole fucking country is. And it's like, okay, well, everybody's the same, but we're all fucking miserable.
Yeah, we're barely making it. We have no prosperity, no joy, no reward for our
existing.
Yeah.
Right. Eking out an existence.
And that's kind of a problem we're having right now with really bad taxing and a wealth management policy from our own government and allowing banks to have too much control over how money is stored and transacted. We are doing something similar to our own nation, but it's not. It's a different type of cronyism, I guess. So we're devaluing our own wealth by outsourcing a lot of things that we shouldn't be, and living off of a debt-based economic system. But
I was like, this is more like shit that we would do with in the Tom Pinoid stream, talking about how we're living in a debt-based society. I agree with all that. I do want to move on to the Goodyear controversy that came up.
Oh God! Oh yeah, that's right. That's where we were. Sorry, yellow card.
Yeah, I'm not trying to call you out, but like everybody saw that, right? There was this thing going around about the slides about how Goodyear has a policy where LGBTQ plus, totally okay. You can wear that shit to work. BLM, totally okay. You can wear that to work. What's not okay is things that say blue lives matter or all lives matter, or
because those are political.
Well, yeah, and then they say like things like MAGA or whatever. I understand policies at work. I think that you should not have any political messaging as a company, right? You don't want to alienate your customers. Like I'm reading this, it's so fucking hilarious because Goodyear came out and tried to deny this, and then audio leaked later where somebody at a Goodyear conference to their employers or employees said exactly what the policy stated. And even in Goodyear's message, right, because they didn't want to lie to people, they tried to come out and say, for those not aware, a widely claimed circulated image sparked a strong reaction. We wanted to take the opportunity to provide support and content. First of all, the visual in question was not created or distributed by Goodyear Corporate, nor was it part of a diversity training class. And then they say, to be clear, their long-standing corporate policy Goodyear has zero tolerance for forms of harassment or discrimination. To enable a work environment free of those, we ask associates to refrain from workplace expressions in support of political campaigning or any candidate or a political party, as well as similar forms of advocacy that fall outside of the scope of, quote, racial justice, end quote, and, quote, equity issues, end quote. So all they did in this announcement is confirm that their policy allows pro-BLM.
We're totally racist. That's all they did was say.
In a lot of ways, I think what's really happening is Goodyear, with all this racial tension, with racism being like the focus of a lot of mainstream media. They outsource things, our companies, our people, to do diversity training. And of course, those people believe in all this anti-racist nonsense. So they came up with a policy based on these people they outsourced it to. And they were told and believed, like in the Trojan horse, that Black Lives Matter just simply means lowercase Black Lives Matter. And we know it doesn't. We've talked about this several times on the show.
Horseshit.
Yeah,
right?
it's not even certain.
Or
Black
LGBTQ advocacy just means that they just want equal rights for, people with different sexualities. And even in this chat, we have Sir Adam and Teen and Gaming and Yelling, which would both say vehemently that, the LGBTQ plus advocacy groups, they don't represent me. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong.
Sorry, no, you are not wrong.
I don't know. It's one of those things, if I was ever to ask a question why, I don't support things like Pride and the rainbow flag and LGBTQ plus movements, my answer would be, I know some gay, lesbian, and transsexual people, and a lot of them get really mad about the shit that's coming out of these advocacy groups' mouths because they don't believe it.
Well, and it makes them look bad.
And they're trying to push ideas that have nothing to do with the fact that, I just want to live in a society where, I don't care if the fucking baker doesn't want to make my cake. I'll go to another fucking baker. I don't want people that are trying to force the baker to fucking make that cake for me.
Yeah, that seems like it's not freedom. That feels like it's really. I think it makes people look bad. It actually does more harm culturally and socially for gay people to have this weird social justice shit going on, because it's breeding discomfort and animosity, because it's the tyranny of the minority.
Well, and try being gay and conservative.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's the tyranny of the minority. Because being gay and conservative means that you have generally mainstream values about society and living within it. And then you go to the LGBT people don't want society. They don't want to live within that society. And it's very frustrating. As a bisexual person, I found it very frustrating. It was very hard to find just normal-minded women to date. It was very, very hard to find.
Well, everybody wants to be up in everybody's business and shit. That pisses me off.
Yeah.
Fuck, leave me the fuck alone. I'll leave you the fuck alone, and I don't give a fuck who you fuck. Go fuck them.
Yeah.
Yeah, on my way to libertarianism, when I was 21, man, I was in my party years. I joined my first band that did house shows and stuff.
That's right.
One of our it was a groupie chick, and her brother was gay, right? And I talked to him he was a really cool dude, and then he said he was a gay conservative, and I sat there and I was like, "What? Don't fucking Republicans hate you?" And he's just well, no, not all of them. It's not really a hate thing. I know there's a lot of religious people that have very negative opinions on my lifestyle. And then he said, and he was younger than me, right? He was 19. I was 21, so he was 19 or 20. and he just said, "There's more important things to me than whether or not the government's going to sign my marriage contract."
That's right.
That was like
That's
a
right.
really eye-opening moment for me, where I was just like, "Huh."
I had a friend
You're right.
with similar mindset too.
Like, that's true. Like,
Okay.
don't like there's wow, that's like so impressive of you as a human being to like on this global scale of politics, just be like, look, if there's just one thing about me that personally affects just me, and there's these other things that I think are really important outside of just me, that are overwhelmingly like part of this party that hates this other thing about me, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna vote for the Republican.
Yeah. Because that's the overarching important thing. I'm not a wedge issue voter or a single issue voter. I'm bigger than that, and I appreciate that
every
too.
fucking vote is a lesser than two evils vote.
Well,
These
also,
days,
like,
especially.
Come on, man.
I think something that I think something that like I have to reflect on is like that dude turned 18 just in time to vote for George Bush the second time. Like, he was a kid. I don't
Yeah.
I don't know. I commend him. Everybody clap for that guy. Both clap.
Okay. I'm all
In
done.
fact, you know what? I'm gonna hit him up here on the face tax on my troll account.
Okay. Okay.
So they said the audience didn't hear it, but I'm talking about this gay dude that voted Republican, which was like at a time when I was young, didn't understand why a gay guy would ever vote Republican. And he was asking me, is like, what, did he suck you off or something? The answer to that is no.
I said, did you suck him off or did he suck you off? Get it right.
Oh, yeah. Either of what happened, I just fucked his sister.
Okay. Even better, did he watch?
No, he was just fine with it because he liked me.
Okay, I was just saying, I was just fucking.
He probably would, like, he probably would have, like, we're totally off topic now, but
Yeah,
I think,
well,
aren't
I mean,
we?
you know,
We're almost to the
musician
end.
in the late 80s, early 90s, early mid 90s, early aughts. Everybody's vibe for about 10 minutes at some point in their life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it was a little longer than 10 minutes. I was dating a woman when I met Carl. Actually, I was dating two women when I met Carl. So, yeah.
I think
I don't know.
I think we're almost to the end of this, so let's just get through the topics at hand. We can
remember where we're at.
We're at the post-millennial article.
Okay.
The one about how school district demands that parents not observe remote learning. Irene, we can skip the international scholars must resist campaign to inject. I'll just go through it right now. There's an article in Quillette, which I'll share the link in the chat if you want to read it. But it basically just shows all this nonsense about how racism in science is a problem, and they want to shut down STEM, blah, blah, blah. This all goes back to the things we've already talked about plenty of times on this channel and in this stream topic, which is they don't believe in anything such as objective truth.
Well, it's nihilism.
Well, and they hate how science actually uses objective measures to get to truth. And so they're fighting against it. And we just showed you, right? An engineering school in their curriculum had Ibram Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist, which we went through thoroughly in an article that thoroughly criticized it, is complete bullshit, right? It has no place in a science classroom. It has no place to even be an optional text, nevertheless a required text.
Yeah, it's like humanities course style book. I don't understand how you get it into STEM. It's like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I can't even find a stretch to put that's too much charity again.
I don't even think it should be in the humanities. Like, the origins of social science, and me and you and Tim, we talked about this briefly, I know, but you might not remember. But when social science actually first became a very big academic field, that was separate from philosophy. What they were trying to do is find social facts, and they were trying to use the scientific method as best as they could to find such facts.
Yes.
Critical theories, critical social justice, critical gender studies, none of those things give a shit about any kind of empiricism whatsoever. They actually openly reject it. So it's become so far removed from anything that could be considered a science that I don't even know why we're funding it in our colleges. I would be like, I don't like the government doing a lot of things, but if the government decided to completely defund these kind of critical theory studies the same way, or like Turkey, Poland, I think even Romania banned some of this, I would be completely on board. And I don't say banned, right? Like if you want to have this as like a private study that you can enlist in, sure, have fun.
Well, you treat it like a religious study.
Yeah, exactly. Anything
because that's what it is. It's attacking science. I can't think of anything other than religion that attacks science. I just can't.
There's no. This is something like James Lindsay brings up all the time. Is it lacks any sort of academic rigor. And Coleman Hughes' criticism as like I think he's like fucking 23 right now. So some 23-year-old philosophy major can poke holes in the factual and empirical inadequacy of what Ibram Kennedy's trying to sell. But apparently Jack Dorsey
felt it was $10 million
that gave him $10 million, cannot see through it at all.
Does that terrify anybody else? Because he's in charge. Did you like Laura Loomer can't have a Twitter account, but this guy can have $10 million?
Right.
What? This is insane, dude. She's like, this is nuts, dude.
Dorsey's making
I don't even know how to fix this. I don't even know how to like. Yeah, this is getting crazy. So, what is the rebuttal or response that we're supposed to have to this, though? I mean, because we're seeing this stuff, and we usually try to talk about like an approach to this, but I don't know anything other than, you know, well, sorry, you're going to have to deal with me seeing your syllabus and listening to your coursework. I don't know what other solution we really have.
Well, yeah, I think you actually skipped a little bit through what we haven't actually talked about on stream, which is this article by the Post Millennial. What happened in Tennessee is that they sent a letter out to parents to say, don't watch your children's virtual education. And the reason for that is because of concerns that have been raised by both teachers and parents about the surprising amount of social justice indoctrination being imparted to students. There's really not much else to say about this article, but when parents hear it, they're just like, holy shit. Like, you're teaching this in K-12 education in Tennessee, of all places. We can even go back to the 1619 project example that we showed, where there's an entire curriculum that is developed and being disseminated amongst K-12 school districts about the 1619 project.
Where was that representative that was decrying having a history course? He was trying to abolish history entirely from school. Where was that?
I don't know that guy.
Okay.
Doesn't surprise me. Like
I saw his speech. I swear it was Hard Bastard that played it. It may not have been though, but it's insane. You guys are right. Like Aloysius, you're absolutely right. This is straight up Animal Farm bullshit right here. Don't pay attention to what your kids are being educated. Are you serious? Yeah. No. I would be having conniptions. Yeah. Conniptions if you don't want me to know what my kids are learning.
They understand what being
American means. Fucker. I think I'm actually pretty sure that there was like a joke going around where they were like talking about cancel Orwell.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like because what Orwell was kind of warning against, even though Orwell himself like kind of aligned with the socialists, and God, this goes back to part of the problem. Like the socialists of old, like they believed in shit like empiricism and objective truth. In fact, Karl Marx was an materialist completely. Right. Even Marx himself like thought that he was talking about objective truth. he was just wrong. Like Marx himself was just wrong about basically fucking everything. But a lot of people
because he was this fucking mooch.
Right, he was a dumbass. Bad Jew.
That's why these people are something new, though. It's just something different, but it's going to end up with the same results that we saw from Marxism, right?
Well,
if we let this shit take over, it's not going to be any different than if Marxism took over.
Yeah, well, that's the truth.
I've been muted on Discord all this time. I've been muted all this time.
Oops.
Well, I can't put a Discord invite out into the stream. I'd say we go ahead and put the Discord invite out and open it up if anybody wants to join and talk. I know we've been going for a little over an hour and a half.
Yeah, I can go another hour and a half ish. All right, so
we can't. I know Full Metal Joker wanted to join.
So, I guess since we're on to the place where I can yellow card the stream, and I'll make sure I don't do that next week. This has just been kind of it was a wild day online, man. It was like just watching those people get beaten and battered and just hit with all kinds of crazy stuff, and the cops didn't do a fucking thing. They came out and did some loudspeaker announcements, so you knew they were watching, which just made it even worse. So
yeah, you're talking about what happened. So today the Proud Boys did a demonstration in Portland.
No, it was the Thin Blue Line. They got mistagged as Proud Boys. There were like 8 Proud Boys there, but it was a Thin Blue Line.
Okay, so they did a demonstration in Portland, and they ended up like, you know, they did their own thing, and they ended up just leaving, and it was because there's so much shit thrown at them that they decided to just leave, which I think is
too many people got hurt.
Yeah, I think that's a good move. In the past, I think the strategy was fight back as hard as they're fighting against you, I guess. I think it was a good move. I think it's not going to be beneficial for them to in any way look like they were initiating violence. Like, don't get it on camera, right? Have all the bullshit Twitter narratives going on that you want, talking about how you're pussies and got chased out. Show up, exercise your free speech, and if you have, if it looks like the violent escalation is going to get to a point where it's going to be really dangerous, get out.
Well, that's what happened. Was they had enough people get injured. There was no longer enough people to form a line. They had enough rocks and crazy shit thrown that there was no longer enough.
Look, if they wanted to start the all-out brawl, I'm pretty sure they could have won it.
Well, and they weren't prepared for it. They were actually dressed for a regular protest. They weren't dressed for a full-blown riot. And I think it's because they had been given assurances that the police would be there.
By the way, I just posted a link to the Discord in the chat. If you want to come talk, you're more than welcome to at this point.
Yeah, and I put one in the chat, and then got one on the actual just beneath the description or in the
just join the green room and we'll drag you in. I know a few people before the stream said they wanted to come in. Anybody in here, like, just come in, talk about your experiences with critical social justice. In fact, I know for sure, and maybe we just don't have enough people watching to have concrete examples, but I know for sure that I'm not the only person that kind of follows this shit, and then their work kind of parroted some of the nonsense. Like, even though it's a completely voluntary, like, outside kind of book club thing they have, I know the company is giving money to them, and they're just letting them do their thing. And nothing's mandatory, right? Like, that's so right now it's not a problem. But how long is that going to last?
It's not going to last very long the way things are looking.
Because all I wish is Fudd Pucker.
Yeah,
and the worst part is if you can't be financially independent, you can't just sit there and challenge your work, because there's a good goddamn chance you're going to get fired just for speaking up. And
Well,
that's
okay. It
like
sucks.
I understand.
It sucks.
I
But
understand
sitting on your ass for
right.
20 years and trying to give everybody fucking charity for these arguments has led to the point where you can no longer sit on your laurels. You're gonna have to put your neck out if you really, really want to make a change. If you want, you're just gonna have to say no. This is too far, and I'm sorry. We're all gonna have to do it. We're all gonna have to put our necks out, and that's just, if we want to have our freedom, it's what we're gonna have to do. And unfortunately, it's just what we're gonna have. I'm sorry. It sucks, and I'm sorry, but we don't have a choice.
I think there's ways that we can make it happen, which is trying to be as anonymous as possible to gather kind of a coalition within your own work group, or like, if you fire me, you're gonna fire all of us.
Well, that would be, you guys would have to be able to meet in person and be able to hang out and like have a beer and like break bread and shit.
Yeah, I think there's probably ways and strategies to do it. Really, I think people that are forced into this woke nonsense that want to object, I really think they have to find allies and just come up with strategies, right? I think, I mean, I might be there soon, to be real honest.
I'm pretty sure you're going to be, Excel.
I'm pretty sure I am as well. I drew the limit at mandatory training. Like, I drew the line there. If they want to have this reign and belonging council, because this is what CEOs, I think, are doing. I said earlier, this shit's popular, right? Like this, well, what's going on is being pushed into the news as like the main problem in society, which is this crazy racial inequity. That has nothing to do with racial inequality. And there's a bunch of shit going on and a bunch of activists fighting against it. So companies, they're afraid of this mob that's going on. So what they're doing is they're just saying, okay, great, we're just going to post our little like black and white Black Lives Matter nonsense. We're gonna post that on our fucking Twitter feed. And then we're gonna have like these nonsense like optional training courses, and we're just gonna hire these outside firms, which I honestly think that's what Goodyear did to write their policy. Don't think the CEOs at the board of the tire manufacturer actually gave a shit about the content. They're just like, oh, okay, that's what's popular. That's what's right. Okay, right, man, I'll hire you. But yeah, I think that's gonna that's what's going on, and I just think they have not received any friction from the other side to scare them. And I think the first scare was actually Trump calling out Goodyear. That's why Goodyear released the statement that could actually confirm their policy, but tried to deny it at the same time.
Well, it's just such blind bias. How can people are going to be like, what am I paying for? I'm paying for you to be this goddamn dumb? You're going to talk about, no.
By the way, Allow Alicious, you've been muted the entire time you've been on stream.
Alicious.
You can unmute and talk if you want to. Ooh.
I hate Discord when it does dumb shit. Sometimes it's hard to get out of mute.
I got him set up where he doesn't. It won't make him, push to talk.
Okay. Sometimes Discord does it anyway. My daughter has that problem.
Perhaps. Listen.
I think that's a good solution too, dear. I just don't know how well the water balloons are going to hold up to the peppermint oil. He says they need to make water balloons filled with wire loop and peppermint oil. I just don't know how well the balloons are going to hold up to the peppermint oil.
Something I missed where I got added by Memes of Destruction, where he's talking about the structure of different groups argument. is it unreasonable to assume two people playing different games would have major disagreements that are unnecessary?
Yes.
And once again, I think maybe. I think memes is being, he has this habit of being like more highbrow than the factual matter of reality would demand. But memes, I would actually love for you to join the live studio and talk to us for a little bit. Otherwise, like, you know, we've been going close to 2 hours. Like, if we run out of people to talk to, or people that want to join the live studio but can't unmute their mic, we're just gonna end this shit.
I'll give it, you know, till 10 after 10 if you don't want to stay open.
Okay.
Or, you know,
So, where are we going next week with this? I think maybe it is time to start talking about gender, because that's the next frontier. You know, coronavirus, women affected most. BLM, women affected most. Black trans lives matter, unless they're in LA and they're friends with Blair White.
Yeah. So, a few things on that topic. So, first off, the race theorist, actually, a lot of them do not agree with the gender theorist, even though it's the same school of thought, which is crazy, because even within themselves, like in their own, their own,
women's are more important. I get it.
no, it's
right? Like they disagree.
Trojan horse and Trojan rabbit, right?
Trojan horse and Trojan monkey.
So, you know, whatever. It's the equivalent.
They're both poopy.
Exactly. They just worship different gods.
Yeah,
Well,
it is. It's the Dianic cult versus.
It's the same religion, just different gods.
Yeah.
Well, there's this other problem of gender on a spectrum, which is we can all kind of understand the idea of a feminine male and a masculine female.
Yes.
Right? Like, all of us can kind of agree on that. But that does not justify this idea that gender is the complete spectrum. It's completely a social construct. It is removed from biology, and that we can have infinite number of genders if we wanted to.
Oh, and you lose me right there.
Well, like I said, like
right there.
Like you have this gap, and this is kind of like this. It goes back to something we called, which was the Mott and Bailey technique of rhetoric, where your average person can understand that, like, gender is not necessarily biological sex. And I actually agree with that. Like, people that are actually transsexual, right? People that have real gender dysphoria, I understand. People that are intersex still. But the difference between those people and people that are promoting the critical theories of gender studies is that they all want to live in the dimorphous sphere of what we consider gender, right? Transsexuals, like actual people that have gender dysphoria, if they're a born male, they want to be considered female. They want to be on the opposite spectrum of the opposite of the dichotomy. Right? People that are intersex, when they're born, they want to be one or the other. They don't want to be considered something in between. And this idea that there is some in between is crazy.
Right.
Well, I've heard a lot of comments. It's like actual transgenders make that argument that this is that the biological spectrum thing is actually distressing for them, because for them, gender and sex is fixed.
Yeah, no, I mean, we know this, right? Like, I know Blair White's popular because she's apparently very wealthy and can get all the plastic surgery to pass as a female. Most people can, by the way.
Well, yeah.
But even she, like, admits that. Like, she agrees with what we just said there, where she's like, yeah, no, it's a mental disorder, and I just feel like this is the best treatment for me, or whatever, to make myself represent the opposite sex.
Something tells me they're going to try to get rid of that in psychology.
Yeah, and that's going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, and they do keep actually doing it, right? Like, They've changed the name like several times. Like it's gender dysphoria. I don't know what they had like a word for it before that was something else. It was like gender non-alignment nonsense. They got rid of you can't. It's no longer gender realignment surgery.
Reassignment.
It's not gender reassignment surgery now. It's gender alignment surgery.
Well, see, that makes sense. No, it makes sense with where they're going progressively, logically, right?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I can see it within their mindset to call it that, because see, the fact is that they're just out of alignment, and all they need is a little surgery to help them get realigned.
Because
instead of becoming transforming from one person to another person, I'm like one person that's just kind of out of alignment, right? Or I vibrated a different frequency,
and that's so fucking stupid.
Yeah,
that really that's really dangerous intellectually and emotionally too.
It is. Well, that's the whole subjective thing. Is what is what. That's what they want to base this on, is their own personal shit, and you can't write a paper and become an expert on on just you, because there's no market for that.
Do you think that narcissism is going to become a serious chronic problem in the next 5 years?
Oh, it's been one for 15 years.
Well, no, I'm saying like a real bigly kind of you know what I mean?
Hardcore malignant narcissism, about 10 or 15 years, man. At least that's what I've been saying. And it all started with the self-esteem movement. And I am guilty of participating in the self-esteem movement as a facilitator back in the day. And, but I said it back then. This is perfect for people that actually have low self-esteem. But if they're just normal, this is going to make them a fucking, self-obsessed piece of shit.
And that's exactly what it's done.
And that's exactly what it did. And then, so, eventually you get people on fucking American Idol that can't sing worth a shit. And fucking Simon Cowell tells them, you can't sing worth a shit. And they stomp out and throw a fit and stuff, and their mom gets all Karened out about it. Right, exactly. Because they've got an
Mommy said so.
Exactly. Mommy said I was handsome. And, I'm so ugly. They used to, have to tie a hamburger around my neck to play with, the dog would play with me.
Well, I'm not, and I don't care. I think everybody's fine the way they are. And I'm so sick of hearing about how we have to have proper self-esteem for this and more of that. Because you know what? A little bit of deprecation and humility goes a long fucking way to understanding other people.
Well, yeah, and the necessity of the ego to be smashed. I'm a big fan of the idea of transcending, enlightenment wise, psychologically, not just Maslow, but the whole deal.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar.
It's called the pyramid. I'm blanking out right now. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing and that stuff. And those things in that face. I think. I don't know. That is a pooper. It's a poop. It's a poop. Anyway. My brain just farted too, because I had a joke there and then it went away. Right?
Yeah, it's Maslow. That's what I was thinking of. The theory of self-actualization, and that psychologically, emotional and psychological growth occur, and
through strife.
It's a transcendent, right? Exactly, and once you get to a certain level, you become what's called self-actualized.
By the way, Memes is in the green room, and Addy said he'll be here in a minute.
Oh, okay. This is going to get interesting.
Well, Memes,
What's up, Memes?
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey, boo boo.
Yeah,
dude.
so Memes, I was very confused. What game am I playing?
The method by which you're having your arguments, or at least this, in my opinion, is because a lot of times, kind of on this side of YouTube, I'll see kind of more of the libertarian, the conservative angle of argument, and then if you're arguing against people using theory, whatever critical theory it might be, they're arguing from a different angle, so you guys are kind of talking past each other a lot of times.
No, that's actually completely wrong.
Okay.
The reason I'm going to say it's completely wrong is you're right that I'm arguing from, you're going to say libertarian. I'm actually going to say liberal, right? I'm going to expand it because this is not, it's not in the wheelhouse of just like what we're talking about, like what the role of government is or what the role of taxes should be. It's something very different. And everything I think we're talking about is incredibly anti-liberal. So the way you're correct is we're arguing a different game because these people are arguing from this idea that liberalism, classically, as we would understand it, is insufficient and that we need to tear it down in order to make an equitable society based on these racial groups that they're describing it as. And if you've watched enough of the streams, I think I've made a pretty good case for why this new critical theory way of thinking of things. And by the way, like I said, critical theory, it actually says it's juxtaposed to traditional theory, right? Like liberal theory, where you use empirical data to support your arguments. Instead, what it does is it tries to find problematics based on axioms that critical theory defines as it goes, and then makes arguments based on the problematics they defined. Atima, did I get that right?
Like, I think so.
Did I get it right in the actual words of the people that I'm trying to criticize?
Yes, you got the right verbiage. Memes, it's bitching for the sake of bitching. It's the religion of Karen.
Well, first off, Addie, hello, you beautiful bird.
Memes. I'm willing to guess you and I are about to disagree on something.
That's very likely. And let me acknowledge Excel, and let me acknowledge Excel that I believe you're right, because I've been on and listened to some broadcasts, and very often liberals are getting complained about as well. And very often I'll let them know I'm a liberal, and it's very interesting because they, like you were saying, the big thing that I hear pushed is study theory, study theory, study theory. It's like, well, why wouldn't they? Because it's like, well, I think in a lot of people's minds, it's working. They seem to be winning arguments or at least progressing issues that are important to them. So it's like, that, fair enough. But the reason why I brought that up is just at least entertain the idea, if you were to accept the angle of their argumentation, basically utilizing critical theory. And it was like Tema said, this is how you could actually, in my opinion, and perhaps I'm burning my lefty card here or something, I'm probably going to get in trouble, is this is how you could maybe not necessarily win, but at least get to a point where you reach some stasis of balance, in my opinion. So just if you were to argue based upon, like what Tema was saying, accounting for everything, individual's life experience, because we don't usually get to that. It usually just devolves into ad hominem attacks, or you're wrong, or you're evil, or you're this ism or whatnot. Insert ad hominem.
That's what I like to do, by the way.
Well, right, and the sheer fact that that's fun, there are a lot of people that like doing that. The folks that are actually trying to have like more of an adult conversation about things usually get drowned out.
Well, okay.
All right, hold on 1 second. No, everybody stop. Memes wasn't around for this, so I'm gonna ask Memes. Do you agree with what I'm about to read? And I'm gonna read it now. To fix the original sin of racism, Americans should pass an anti-racist amendment to the U.S. Constitution that enshrines two anti-racist principles. Racial inequality is evidence of racist policy, and that to different racial groups are equal. The amendment would make unconstitutional racial inequity over a certain threshold, as well as racist ideas by public officials, with racist ideas in public officials clearly defined by people like Ibram Kendi. It would establish and permanently fund the Department of Anti-Racism, comprised of formerly trained experts on racism and no political appointees. The DOA would be responsible for declaring all local, state, and federal public policies to ensure they won't yield racial inequity, monitor those possible, so on. Does it sound like a good idea to you, Beams? You down with that constitutional amendment?
I mean, that's absolutely a very bold ask, and I mean, hey, power to I believe, is it what was her name? She write white fragility or something?
It's a guy. No, it's a dude.
Oh, my
It's
apologies
Ibram
for misgender sexualized, or words. The thing is that second sentence there, it's just basically it doesn't depend on your ancestry. Everybody's equal. Like I don't think that would be a bad amendment.
That's already fine.
We already have all men are created equal.
Yeah, I'm like, this seems, it sounds redundant.
Could we have people?
It's the other stuff, right? So if we dissect groups and we find out that some group is not having the economic outcomes as other groups, should we have policies to ensure that the other group has the same economic outcomes?
I mean, in my opinion, I'd say you go upon the individual circumstance of every situation. Like if somebody happens to get thrown out into
this is an amendment about instituting the Department of racial equality, right? So we're not talking about individuals. They're trying to enshrine in grouping people into their categories of race.
And
it's the anti-racist amendment.
Who suggested this?
Ibram Kendi, the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist, which is a #1 bestseller, and also was recommended to me by my company and their belonging group as a reading material for how to be less racist in the workplace.
Okay. No, I acknowledge that, and that, again, like I said, I mean, that is a very bold ask, especially in these United States, based upon tensions and everything. I mean, hey, if that's what he believes, he's entitled to his opinion. I must also remind everybody that Donald Trump also, I believe, wrote a best-selling book and also said there was going to be something like a 30-foot high border barrier that he alluded to being almost the entire border at one point. And
well, that's awesome. So how many schools and even engineering schools, which actually I showed an example that made it required reading, had a Donald Trump book as required reading in education. Can you think of any?
Well, I mean, he was specifically for marketing for real estate, and his book came recommended from one of the top real estate agents that I had.
All right, but no place you were in school would have ever told you to read his book outside of real estate.
I was recommended Jack Welch when I was studying business. I mean, I don't know.
So what you're saying is no.
I mean, it was possible. The individual professor, if they happened to read it, if they happened to work in certain things, it's and they were involved in real estate or sales or something. I mean,
oh, come on, that's unreasonable. So ridiculously pedantic.
Yeah, so you have no examples of actual educational institutions requiring reading by Trump?
No, and I would say, as far as the business thing goes, if you happen to have an objection to the material being presented, voice up, because a wise woman once said, if nothing is said, nothing will change.
That's pretty awesome, but when it's ran by your HR department,
it's illegal what do you think to fire you for an opinion, because that would open you up to your employer up to litigation.
No.
Yeah.
HR departments do that all the time.
So what do you think?
If you want to find a way to fire any employee, almost every employee does something technically worthy of termination.
Well, right, but if you have evidence that other people have done similar things that they're claiming to fire you for, then you can definitely hold them liable. Is it a pain in the ass? Should you have to go through that? Probably not, but that's the situation you're in.
All right,
And
so
this is,
if you're a $15 an hour employee, what are your
Damien, I'm
chances
not
of getting a
talking
lawyer that are going to take up that suit for you?
much.
oh,
Yeah.
well, most folks won't do that because they usually don't have the resource and everything, but this is something I was arguing or going back a bit and forth with MC earlier. His big gripe is, the Democrats go to the court, or the left will bring it to the court. It's like, well, they're fighting for things that are important to them.
You know what?
If it's not important enough to you to go to court to fight for, to establish some sort of precedent or something like that, I mean, this is a system we're in.
Yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to take this opportunity to say that a lot of what critical social justice warriors say about the legal system in America, I agree with the root of the problem. I do not agree with their solution. It is definitely not equal, right? But what it boils down to, out of anything, it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with money. How much money you have determines how much sway you have in the legal system. That's it. There's no other factor. I'm sorry, there's not any other one. That's why OJ got off the first time. Like, if you have the fucking money, you can get off. That's it.
Oh no, that has a huge amount to do with it, depending on your sources. If you can hire a freaking like $3,000 an hour attorney's firm and stuff like that to fight with you, yeah, you're probably going to get some damn good representation. But let's face it, a lot of folks could barely even scrounge up like $500 as just a retainer.
No, I agree. I completely agree with that. You all you did is reiterate what I was saying. Like, I completely agree. Our legal system is fucked. I'm a libertarian. Like, I understand why all this shit is a real problem and not problematic in some way that is dividing people unnecessarily into groups based on their race.
Oh, I hear what you're saying, man. And that's why I'm like, okay, does a lot of the situation that we happen to be in make sense? It's like, all right, well, if a lot of these people have certain situations, there do seem to be a lot of non-profits and other organizations that are willing to take up these people's cases. And you know what? I've seen this on the right starting to happen more and more. The right is getting more engaged. That's the thing. A lot of these things weren't actually dealt with, and a lot of folks just kind of let them go for a number of years. So it's like, if you're not necessarily going to play the game in the system that exists, it's like, don't be surprised when other people are pushing things you might not be a fan of.
All right, Memes, I'm going to come back to you, but I will say the reason I invited you on is I like you. I think your opinions are fine. I think we agree on almost everything, to be honest. Like, if you came issue to issue, we're definitely going to agree on all the problems. We won't agree necessarily on the solutions, which is completely fine. But I do think that you are unaware of the issue that critical social justice actually, the threat that critical social justice imposes to society. But I want to go back to Addy. I'm going to give, because he joined. I wanted him to join for a very specific purpose, which is talking about how you have these LGBTQ activist groups that don't represent people like Addy at all. Not even close.
Couldn't be further away from me.
Yeah, like, would you be willing to share examples of times where you're just like, God, that pisses me off?
Not particularly in my real life, because in my real life, there's a relatively small number of people that I'll talk to, and about anything of any meaning. And
well, it's
anyone
not
else,
necessarily real life. It's just shit you read.
Oh well, I mean, just in general. I mean, here's my point. My thoughts about anything gay goes something like this: if I wanted to get married, that's a contract between two adults. I also have the libertarian streak. It's no religious fanatics and it's no communist business. What I do, period. That's it. As far as any sort of advocacy, Gay people have all the rights they need already. It's time to get over that and accept that it's just fine. Black people haven't been willing to accept that for 50 years, and look how well it served them to be bitter about technically nothing. Is that where gay people want to be at? In a chronic position of bitching about how they can't succeed because no one supports them? I don't believe in that kind of ideology, regardless of what the subject is. And as far as like all the weird we're creating problems, I'm gonna identify as a whatever and call me a whatever. Personally, I'm not willing to call anyone anything other than he, she, or it. If you want to create a word that's your weird fantasy, I'm not engaging with it. I think most of the shit that you've heard that you wouldn't have heard 10 or 20 years ago, it isn't people actually being anything other than desperate for attention.
And what you just said right there, Sir Adamantine, is why, if I was ever asked, why do I not support LGBTQ plus issues? I would say, well, I mean, I have friends that are gay, lesbian, trans, etc., that find this shit appalling. Right? They completely disagree with it all. And I would be disrespecting my actual friends that have a different sexuality than I do by saying I support this agenda that they're trying to put out. And I would be, right? Like, it would be super hollow if I just told you, Sir Adamantine, I like you so much. The reason we talk on the internet is because I just love having you as a gay friend, and you're so gay, and you support all these gay issues, and you're so LGBTQ plus, right? Like, I didn't even know you were fucking gay until, like, it was like a couple months after we started talking almost. I was like, what, you're gay? And you're like, oh yeah, it comes out when I get drunk.
That's because aside from making vulgar jokes about it, gay doesn't define me in the least. That's not.
It's not. It's not like even in the forefront of who you are.
Are vulgar jokes about being gay necessary to be broadcast openly on the internet?
Yes.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on.
Yes. Actually, absolutely memes. Yes, 100%. We need to make jokes about being gay, just like we need to make jokes about being straight, just like we need to make jokes about being effeminate, just like we need to make jokes about all the shit that's weird and makes us uncomfortable. Because if we don't make jokes about it, we get very mean and anxious towards each other without the jokes.
So, like making jokes about being white?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All of it's allowed.
No, it's just gotta be inclusive.
But all of it has to be allowed, right? You can't draw the line based on some like weird oppression group.
Now let's slice this into a more focused look, because I think actually one of the issues we have is, I again generally agree that yeah, you should be able to say what you want to say. However, just because somebody has the right to say what they want to say, somebody that doesn't necessarily want to have to view that shouldn't necessarily have to view that. Because one of the complaints I heard back in the day, a couple years ago, was when you had basically just somebody that was looking to research feminism or something, they would YouTube search for feminism, and you're starting to get the top things coming up and recommend videos for like Sargon of Akkad, who happened to make a lot of his career on YouTube by bashing feminism. And that was a big complaint I had.
He wasn't bashing feminism. He was bashing bad ideology, and he was bashing, it wasn't just feminism, that was Gamergate. And trying to distill Gamergate down to just feminism with Anita Sarkeesian and the whole corruption that was exposed during Gamergate, that feels really disingenuous, and it feels like you're misdirecting.
Yeah. One of the most famous feminists of all time is Christina Hoff Sommers. I'm willing to bet Sargon never criticized her at any point in time.
Christina Hoff Sommers is a liberal feminist. And once again, on this stream, liberal on this stream, specifically on the Exelereighted Deconstruction, which, don't get me wrong, I hate that name, but Atima and Irate like it a lot, so I wasn't going to fight against it. But when we say liberal on this stream, we're talking about descendants of Enlightenment ideas,
Now, Tema, the reason why I would say that again, I wasn't around for all that, so I could be completely mistaken. It seemed that after Sargon had some trouble with his channel, all of a sudden a video came up that seemed to be quite critical of maybe some modern feminism and stuff, and I don't know, it just kind of seemed to be his wheelhouse. Again, I wasn't around for Gamergate, I was busy playing Ark Survival Evolved.
Yeah, no, I was in the it was Gamergate, and it was rough to be somebody who enjoyed video games or anything associated with video games at the time. It was nuts, and it was feminism just happened to be one of the conduits they were using as an excuse to destroy games, and Sargon was trying to deconstruct the excuses that groups like Kotaku, and I can't remember the group that Anita Sarkeesian started that imploded, but
are you talking about Feminist Frequency?
Yep.
That might be it. I think that's the name.
By the
But
way, the first person that wanted to join is in the green room. I'm going to call it out because he's the person I had to tell, look, we usually don't get through the shit we want to cover. We actually did tonight. But he's in the green room, so let's drag him. What's up, Full Metal Joker?
Yo.
Hey, Joker.
With everything that I heard before I fell asleep, like, this stuff was completely new because I can remember going to school. Like, from preschool all the way up to high school, they never taught this shit.
yeah,
And I'm 30 years old. Like, the only thing they mainly taught was reading, writing, arithmetic, science, and math. That's
God,
it.
you're in the middle. So did you go to college, Joker?
For a couple of years, ended up dropping out because I ran out of money, and I wasn't getting a student loan.
Yeah, I wasn't actually asking that question to like belittle you, but I would think like around that time when you were in college, this shit would have been popping up.
Oh yeah, it started popping up around college. And the thing is, it wasn't the older teachers that was kind of
it was all
on
the young
that.
ones.
Yes, like because this was the funny thing. Like when I was in college, I was trying to do graphics design with a minor in English literature. The old teachers when I was doing English, man, we got along perfectly. They loved how I wrote. They loved how I thought. But then came the young teachers. We clashed to the point where, come my last day in one of my classes, because she was giving me a hard time about how she thought my persuasive essay was too controversial, it got to the point where I acted all cool, accepted, double-checked my work. Then the last day, I put the same paper down and I said, "Grade it, bitch," and left.
Oh, that doesn't seem very nice. Could I just ask what was controversial about the paper? I mean, you don't have to share if you don't want.
I was pretty much talking about trying to persuade the argument about how people take things too far, i.e. tattoos, piercings, etc. And she got on my case of, why did you say people? You need to say Americans.
I mean, cultural specification. But then again, I mean, you could even say it is a cultural thing in America, too. I think she was trying to at least take out certain places in the world where it might be an extremely strong part of people's different cultures and kind of, I don't know, that's just my initial reaction.
But isn't that the point of a persuasive essay, to kind of persuade your idea?
Look, I'm actually gonna circle this all back around to something that I look. This is all based on anecdotes, but I think it's a real problem. So, I took Philosophy 101 in college. It's one of my humanities courses, and in Philosophy 101, what you are always taught, and this is throughout like basically every philosophy course, you're gonna learn the proofs for God. Throughout history from all thinkers, right? But even in college, I was like already decided I was agnostic or an atheist, right? Like I called myself agnostic then, but I think atheist is a better term. So whenever we had our final paper, where we had to, like, it was kind of an experiment where we had to take our notes and essays on every individual philosopher. I did my own response. I wrote it as an atheist, right? Like I had a response, but I followed the guidelines. I did well. The teacher gave me an A, even though he was a church minister that really believed in God and liked all the philosophical discussions for the existence of God and believed it, right? Like he thought that I did a good job. The problem with this new anti-racist theory, right, critical social justice, is if you go against it in education, you're going to get ostracized. You're going to get an F for going against what the teacher believes. If you don't believe me, just look at all the people that said that, like, yeah, they had a problem contradicting their professors. I can find them. I will give you the...
I wanted to wait till you finished. I thought, memes. Do you know what the controversial paper I did for the older teacher that she loved? I was talking about how I was pro-death penalty and how keeping people in prison costs too much. So comparing the two, the one with the younger teacher.
Well. Here's the one thing, Joker. Do you feel that the situation would have been different had you just swapped the papers for the teachers?
I don't know.
Because I'm just saying, if we're going to make stereotypes here about more of the quote-unquote what we're assuming to be a progressive younger professor, if you said it costs too much money to keep people in jail, I don't know. My gut feeling is you may have gotten an A.
Well, the paper was pro-death penalty. So the younger teacher.
Oh, never mind. I misheard that. That sounds very barbaric.
Well, I mean it as an aspect is like you know how people are kept in prison for life sentences even though they have evidence on top of evidence that they done a heinous crime like kill a kid or kill a family, stuff like that, but they're given life penalty instead of death. So I was persuading the argument in that manner, like if there's without a reasonable doubt. I think did something seriously barbaric and effed up instead of keeping them in prison draining resources.
You know what? We're actually on a tangent that I completely agree with. I have serious problems with the criminal justice system. I think there's a lot of people in jail that do not need to be in jail. It's not a huge percent, like at least 20 though, right? Where they're in jail for bullshit reasons, like doing fucking drugs, right?
Well, see,
fuck that. Like, put whatever in your body you want to put in your body.
Well,
like,
that's what I agree with too. Like, I hate this victimless crime, putting people in prison just because they got a little too high or a little too drunk, or putting people in prison just because, you had like about an ounce of weed on you or something like that.
And this is where it makes it like fucking bullshit, right? Like, people that are considered right wing, like what you, like Addie, are you considered right wing?
I'm centrist. People consider me far right wing, but I'm a centrist.
What about you, Addie? Are you a right wing white nationalist authoritarian?
Addie?
Oh, me?
He's got an eagle with a white head.
Yeah, I'm asking you.
I'm not a Nazi, but I do have some very far right, not what I would view as the crazy far rights, but I have some very conservative views. Mixed in with a healthy view of my life and thus your life is no one's business but your own. As long as you're keeping it to yourself, shut the fuck up.
Exactly. Like individual liberty. Do what you're gonna do if it doesn't affect anybody else. The law should have nothing to do with it. Do you agree, Addy?
I absolutely agree. I think things. People should only be in prison if they actually did something that legitimately harmed someone else.
Yeah, they interfered with the rights of others.
It's not like we incentivize to put people in prison.
Yeah, we don't have any. We don't have any privately owned prisons, right?
Which is a whole other issue that we need to address as a nation. But we can't get to that point because we have to keep hearing about fucking racism instead of privatized prisons.
Yep. You know what? Same question for memes. Like basically the same question. Like, should the law just make sure that the law is applying equally to all individuals?
Well, yeah. You should treat it regardless of anybody's ancestry, what they look like or stuff. Just whatever it's set up. The situation is a situation. This is why justice is supposed to be blind. And that was one of the things I was trying to communicate by saying, if you're taking arguments that are coming from theory and stuff like that, how would, in that framework, you actually launch your quote-unquote counter-argument? Because at least at that point, you're playing the same game, and you could find some modicum of balance that, well, maybe nobody will get exactly what they want, but you at least get enough of what you want where you're like, oh, I can move on and not want to kill other people.
All right. I took that and I have a response, but I have to ask you a question, like an extra question on top of what I asked you.
Sure.
Would you agree that it is okay to discriminate on people based on race so long as it promotes the equity of the racial group?
Well, that sounds like affirmative action.
Yeah, like, but like, let's expand it to anything you could possibly have a policy on, right?
I don't
just redistribute the shares of equity based on race, for very specific things like admittance to college or any other thing that you could possibly have two applicants for, where a person or a group of people have to decide. Would you agree that they should be allowed to discriminate so long as they're promoting a minority group into the population?
As far as I remember, I believe, again, I'm not an attorney, the Supreme Court ruled that it could be a factor in certain things such as college admissions, but it couldn't be a major factor, and I believe there is pending litigation. I believe it's against Harvard or whatnot.
I'm not asking about the Supreme Court. I'm just asking if you agree on it. Like, we'll put it in very simple terms.
My problem with this is my gut instinct is you should treat people the same and judge them based upon their merits and everything and just themselves as an individual. The only issue I come into is just because I actually have heard arguments for reparations and stuff, and the way I actually came to this, it just kind of stuck in the back of my mind, is I was listening to the Common Sense guy, and he was arguing with African Supremacy TV, Brother Craig, and they literally argued for like an hour and 6 minutes about George Washington's teeth. But at one point, they were talking about reparations, and then I looked up George Washington, and I found out, okay, basically after he died and after his wife had passed, that basically their slaves ended up being freed. And I'm like, that's cool, but then again, I'm reading that, I'm thinking time value of money and the sheer fact that if you don't happen to be a free person being able to own your own property and everything, that has the potential to affect multiple generations down the line. So I'm like,
yeah, all right. You know what, memes? Like, some of the shit you said at the end, I don't disagree with. But everything else you said,
what religion were you raised in, memes?
I came into this world as a Jew. I had holy water splashed upon me. I came into Christendom. Had my life gone a little differently, I may have married a beautiful Syrian rose.
I don't know what you use, right?
Hey,
I'm Jewish on the wrong side. I didn't celebrate Hanukkah. I'm a bad Jew.
Excel.
That kind of, all right, so it gives me a place to
Trying to figure out his origins.
He's got he's got a really strong sense of compassion, I would say.
Yeah, you know what? Eventually, we're gonna get memes to be like, "I'm a super fucking liberal and I support all these liberal policies, but I'm gonna side with all my conservative friends instead of being a devil's advocate and disagreeing with them on shit that I know that is going on that I would not support." Which is basically what happened there, right? The question I asked is like, would he support that? His answer was no, but he had to put more words in. Anyway,
well, my thing is, we have issues. I'd like to solve them rather than screaming at each other about them. And
I don't want to scream.
Pragmatic.
No memes. The reason I invite you onto the streams is because we can talk. Like, we don't necessarily disagree. Like, I know that I was being short there, but I also know that we've been going on the stream for well over 2 hours, and I rate wants to shut this bitch down. So we'll just do a lead in there, and next week we're going to be here at the same time for Accelerated Deconstruction. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. Do we want to tackle race or gender? Do we want to try to do that when it's not really a thing? There is definitely like a good video we can watch with Deborah So on the Joe Rogan podcast, but we'll have to be careful cutting the clips out of that because it is always a copyright strike if you play a full Joe Rogan video.
Which is so dumb and frustrating. Sorry.
It's also automatic.
Well, you could push further on to the whole K-12 indoctrination of public schools like you were doing here, because there's so much more.
That's for you, Carl.
You could email Joe and ask for permission.
I believe that, and what you should do is, we should set up our own email address, right, for people to just say like, hey, tackle this subject or tackle this thing that is tangential to critical social justice. Because you're right, like the K-12 indoctrination is a thing. I went a little bit into college, but what I covered today, Full Metal Joker, is it was literally just shit because I was so busy with work and other stuff. I had no time to like really explore any topics. It was just shit that came up on my feed that I shared. That was enough to cover an hour and a half of a show.
I was thinking maybe we should just wait and see how it works into the news next week and see
what I was going to say is like maybe wait till and then pick something like Wednesday or Thursday, and that way it would be a lot easier to run into it with the because we had a lot of prep, but we just weren't organized with.
I think, and I hope next week it becomes so bad for me. I also think like if there's nothing particular that's coming up in current events that makes us want to talk about something, we just kind of pick a subject like we were doing initially, right? We beat anti-racism to death. I don't think there's anything else that if you watch iRate's stream and if you watch the streams on my channel, I don't think there's any subject we can cover that would provide more context than what we've already done. But there's other stuff like Full Metal Joker was talking about we should do more K-12 education brainwashing stuff. Well, there's actually a whole topic on critical pedagogy, which is basically a translation of critical education. We could cover that in a whole stream.
Oh, okay. Okay. Why don't we wait and see what the news brings us, and if not, we'll go to that.
Or anything else, right? Like I'm just saying, there's plenty of topics we could cover in the sphere of critical social justice, where we could have a conversation based on less than whatever I shared before the show. We could cover that. We would need less articles and one topic, and we could probably talk for an hour and a half.
True.
The reason why I find something like this real interesting is because I've been listening to a YouTuber by the name of Mr. Obvious,
Uh-huh.
and he's been covering stuff about education wise. And this one thing that really pissed me off was, since people are doing more staying at home and doing school, still going to public school, but doing it at home because of the virus. Some of these teachers are trying to get parents to sign an agreement that they wouldn't record the classes because parents are starting to realize
you were asleep, but we covered that actually.
Oh, you did? Oh.
Yeah.
We covered it wasn't just that they didn't want them to record it, it's that they didn't want them overseeing their kids' education because it turns out the parents were surprised about the amount of critical social justice theory that was being promoted to their children.
Or the fact that a lot of these children that wanted to be trans the time that they stayed at home said, "I'm a boy."
Yeah, they've changed their minds. Yeah, they've changed their minds. Yeah.
Okay, but there's still more to talk about as far as this. Like, as I said when I first hopped on, all of this is relatively new because I was born in the 1990s. I never saw any of this shit growing up.
Until this shit is pushed back in the margins, there will always be a place to talk about this. This is why I moved it from my bullshit channel to Irate's channel, because I know Irate and Atima, like Irate was fucking super mad before the stream just based on the content I shared to him as to what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, well, anyone that's a parent.
We need to wrap up, guys.
Grandparent.
So
okay,
been going a while.
Yeah. We're gonna wrap it up now.
Going on 3 hours.
Full Metal Jokers, their adamantine means of destruction. There's a very good chance in about an hour I'll have an after stream on my channel.
Cool.
If you want to do it, just message me. We'll have a stream where we can just talk about whatever, like we have been at the end of this.
All
right.
Okay, well, you guys have fun doing that stream. I want to eat bacon.
Or we can do it on Addie's channel. Addie, you want to do drinks with friends late night?
Go eat bacon.
I think my doing a drinks with friends these days is quite dangerous.
All right.
All right. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking with a dude named Sanguine Magavan. Yeah. I don't know. Prospero told me to say it that way, so you know. So I'm gonna do what Prospero says. He knows best. And then Monday, Becca Fairley and I are going to be starting. We're going to look at Yuri Bezmenov. All right, he's kind of popped up in the zeitgeist as of recent, and I figured this is a good time to start a new show and focusing on how communism is an insidious fucking form of reality, and that it abhors me to my marrow.
And I fully expect you to get to a point where like there's gonna be a show where like we gotta get Excel in.
Well, it's probably gonna end up being, you know, we're gonna open it up and have another show and call it, you know, all right, it'll just be commie hate. 5 minutes. It'll be a 5-minute show. 5 minutes of communist hate. And
look, I was just talking about how like you're gonna need somebody to explain this new rendition of communism that you're trying to promote on everybody, and I'm gonna be your guy.
Well, no, we're gonna be focusing on the Cold War first, and we're gonna.
Yeah, I know.
Get down.
I said eventually.
Yeah,
I said
eventually.
I see what
you're saying. Eventually, yeah.
There will be the day. It's like, look, this show we got Excel. Let's bring him in.
Indeed. I'm sure
maybe. I don't know. I think Excel spells too funny to do that.
Fuck communism.
Indeed. And on that note, let's say goodbye, everybody.
And fuck communism.
Fuck commies and goodbye.
Yeah, later, everybody. If you want to subscribe to my channel, I may or may not be streaming here a little bit later, maybe in an hour. Otherwise, thank you, Irate, for picking up Accelerated Deconstruction, because I feel this is an important topic that you will continue on well beyond my days on YouTube. Timmy, you too. Full Metal Joker, thanks for joining. Sir Adam and Teen, maybe talk to you later. Memes, always love talking to you because you're my principled opposition. Later, all.
Turn of power.
Every week on Friday, midnight Eastern, the Cream Stream, the weekly world news for YouTube. Sundays, 5 p.m. Eastern, the ice cream interviews, fascinating people, fascinating people. Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, hot takes with the Butter Baron, watching horrible shit so you don't have to. Subscribe to Irate Prostate now.
Later, y'all. It's been real fun. It's been real fun. See y'all tomorrow.